Join me by the candlelight.
I am a 19-year-old female when this happened. I was around 13 or 14. It was a really hot day in mid-July, and I had my friend, who we'll call Liz, come over to swim and stay the night since my brothers and dad were gone, and it was just my mom and I. At around 10 at night, my mom told Liz and I it was time to come in, considering it was getting late and kind of cold. We weren't done messing around in the water, so we decided to go put our feet in the bath and just talk. All was well, and we were having a good time, when I heard what I thought was my mom calling my name. "Emily." I said yes, and there was a knock on the bathroom door. I leaned back and opened it slightly and said yes again. No response. I closed the door, thinking she was just yelling to see if we were back in the house. About 10 minutes later, Liz and I are still sitting in the tub when I heard my name being called again. "Emily." I was beginning to get frustrated because my mom wasn't answering when she called. So I got out of the tub, flung the bathroom door open, and shouted, "What? Why do you keep calling my name?" My mom yelled back to me and said, "I'm not, so knock off with your fucking attitude." I was uneasy now. We're the only ones in the house, and Liz is with me, so who else could be calling my name? I told myself my mom was fucking with me because I get scared so easily, so I closed the door to where there was a crack, and Liz and I sat on the other side of the tub to where we could see the door. Another 5 minutes had passed when the door creaked a little bit further, and my name was said again. I bolted up, flung the door open, and said proudly, "I knew it was you, you lie." No one was there. Liz and I was now very scared, and I was almost pissing myself. We ran down the stairs so fast to tell my mom what was happening. Needless to say, we didn't go back upstairs until the sun came out.
One day, me and my two friends visited this spooky forest. Not nearby, but we managed to get there just to check it out as we love the natural atmosphere. Giving my lungs some adrenaline for fresh air. The time we reached there was about 7 p.m. It was already getting dark, and just to let you know, there's no light source in the forest except the exit of the forest area. So it was much darker than we expected. My friend had his Apple, and I had my tab with dual flash, so we decided to use them to at least see each other. An hour passed by having conversation and smoking cigarettes. We were sitting under a tree as it was thick enough for all of us to lay our backs on and relax. We were having a good time until we started hearing a sound like two rocks smashing into each other. Or one rock smashing on the ground again and again. We were pretty confused at this point. I told my friends that it must be a cat trying to climb a tree, making some branches fall off that could be making that rock sound. But it didn't stop for like 3 or 4 minutes. Now after some time it stopped, and we were still assuming it could be an animal making these sounds. Things went silent for about 5 minutes. We started a conversation about this forest atmosphere being so windy and cold. As we were speaking, a rock fell on my friend's head, and I'm wondering how a rock even got up in the tree. Within 4 to 5 seconds, a branch fell on my lap, scaring the hell out of me. Once again, my friend started to feel water drops falling on his neck from up the tree. How was there still a chance of water dropping down from a tree when the rainy season was already over 2 months ago? This night was clearly not our lucky night, as we heard the same sound of the rock smash again, but now it sounds like it's getting closer. Immediately, without any options to choose, we decided to run out from the forest as quick as we could. We left the forest safe and sound and headed to our homes. After a few days of the incident, one of our friends posted news about the same forest. There was a huge tower just like a lighthouse, as said by the post. We saw that tower from a distance, but didn't get closer as it was a rocky area and there was a chance that one of us could fall off the cliff. So in the post, a boy was passing by the tower, and the first thing he saw was a person, but only his head. The post also said the police couldn't find the body, but just the head of the man, which was already found by the same person who saw it while passing by. But the question remains, what happened to this guy? How in the world can this ever happen to someone? It can be the drug addicts who made this forest to get high with brown sugar, or this guy as a drug addict getting his head torn off by someone. And could the weird experience we had a few days ago in this same forest be the same guy doing it after death? My questions are yet to be answered. I never visited that forest again, nor did anyone else. When my older sister and I decided to explore an old, abandoned building in my hometown, I honestly wasn't scared at all. My sister is a dedicated believer in all things paranormal. Ghosts, demons, the whole 9 yards. I, on the other hand, I am a big-time skeptic. However, I do enjoy freaking myself out. So I took it upon myself to find some kind of abandoned building to explore, which is something I had been wanting to do for quite some time. I don't know what I expected going into this building. Maybe we'd find some cool graffiti or remnants of the previous owners. What I didn't expect was the horrid sense of dread I felt when I first stepped foot into this decrepit, decaying, 2-story brick house. As we walked around, our flashlights was our only source of light in the dark, dead night. We saw things in the corner of our eyes, but they were gone before we could fully turn our heads to see them. It always seemed as if there was a third pair of footsteps that would continue to walk for a second after we would stop, curious as to who may be behind us. What I really didn't expect was to run out of the house with a scream escaping my lips as I felt a strong gust of wind in my hair, as a voice whispered right into my ear. I was planning on staying with my sister that night, but I couldn't even stand the thought of staying in the same town as whatever was back in that house. I lived the next town over, so I decided to go home. As I pulled out of my sister's driveway, I reached down to turn the radio on, deciding that music is the best thing to calm me down right now. However, as it turned on, all there was static before shutting off completely. That's odd, but I do drive an almost 20-year-old car, so it's likely just wiring issues. I started my 45-minute drive to my house, and I grew weary of the long stretches of dark highway I would be driving on. I hate living in the country. I was soon out of the bright lights of the city and into the rural areas that line the highway I had to drive on for more than half an hour. As I reached my first stretch of darkness, there were eerily no other cars around. Seeing as though it was a Saturday night, the absence of cars was odd, but not extremely uncommon. As I said, I live in the country, so not a lot of people out here. I snapped out of my thoughts as I heard a clicking noise. Suddenly, I was surrounded by darkness as my headlights clicked off. I felt a sense of panic set in as I immediately reached out and turned my headlights back on. My heart raced as I collected myself. I was about 10 minutes into my drive, and nothing else odd had happened. Like I said, my car is rather old, so I just summed everything up to being wiring issues that I would have to check on in the morning. However, I started feeling the same sense of dread that I got while in the abandoned house. I decided that I should call someone to take my mind off of everything. I grabbed my phone and without looking, I dialed my best friend, something I often do on my drive home from my sister's. However, after a few rings, the phone cut off. I at first got upset, thinking my best friend had just hung up on me. When I looked down at my phone, though, I realized that I was going through the section of highway that didn't have any cell phone service. Again, I grew nervous as I white-knuckled the steering wheel, allowing my foot to drop a bit more on the gas pedal, wanting to get home as fast as possible. When I thought I had service again, I decided to try and call my best friend one more time. I grabbed my phone in my right hand, keeping the left firm, stiff on the steering wheel. However, I began to feel the wheel moving under my hand as if I was pulling to the right. I dropped my phone back into the cup holder and put both hands on the wheel. I felt the wheel continuing to move under my hands despite my hardest efforts to pull it the other way. I looked and I saw that I was riding in the shoulder of the highway, my car moving to almost be off the road. I let out a scream, horrified as to what could possibly be trying to pull my car off the road. Suddenly, the wheel was released. I almost wrecked trying to overcorrect myself to get back on the road. I was crying at this point, so filled with fear that I could hardly see straight. I wanted desperately to pull over, but I was in the middle of nowhere. When I hit a patch of road that was illuminated by street lamps, I checked my rearview mirror out of habit. I froze. I froze there sitting in my back seat was the most evil face I could imagine, with this pitch black skin, over-exaggerated smile, and wide sunken eyes. It was paralyzing. I let out the most blood-curdling scream as my headlights flickered on and off, and my radio turned on to static as loud as it could go. I felt the steering wheel pulling to the side again.